Hi, Haley. So the first question is, Court Square in Long Island City has seen significant residential development, with
Mhm.
thousands of new residents and large buildings continuing to be built. Although the city has tried to balance the unplanned development of the Long Island City by promising the Queens Public Library to reopen the closed library branch and the
Mhm.
SCA to build a new elementary school, there really hasn't been any progress or updates from SCA or Queens Public Library. As the council member representing the neighborhood, what concrete specific steps can you do to prevent these scenarios from occurring in the future? And now that we're in the current situation, what concrete specific steps can you do to ensure that the city actually delivers its promise for the new library and reopening the library branch?
Well, in terms of the school, actually, the reason I was unable to make the interview yesterday was because we were looking at a school site in Astoria for a school annex. And School Construction Authority had been kind of doing the same thing they've been doing at Court Square, which is looking and then saying all the reasons why they didn't think the space was good enough, or et cetera, et cetera. So I understand the frustration, and I understand that Court Square has actually been looking for a school site for the better part of a decade at least. And I think part of that actually does have to do with the overdevelopment of Long Island City. I think developers had come into the neighborhood without really vetting the area properly, and so they built a lot of really big luxury towers without really giving much thought to the actual number of schools they needed to build. So I think that's partly what's contributing to the difficulty is just the lack of space for the school. Um, if I if I'm elected, one of the things you can do is make sure that you work uh, really closely with school construction authority to make sure that they deliver on their promise. A lot of the time, I understand that the school construction authority's job is to make sure they find a site that's going to be safe for kids, that meets environmental needs, that meets safety needs, et cetera, et cetera. And they look at various things, and that's all well and good. But I really do hope we can work with school construction authority to make sure that we vet school sites together, and that they're very transparent in what they're looking for in a school site, and that we can actually better figure out which spaces are suitable so that people don't have to go through this lengthy process of I really hope this site works, and then it doesn't. Um, so that's in terms of what we can do for the schools. It's unfortunately a lack of space according to school construction authority, but there are things we can do to kind of work through that together. And uh, the best thing the community can do as well is continue to give suggestions for school sites. Let the council member know, let the school construction authority know, and yeah, you guys are our best resource. And as for the library, um, is the issue that to do with space? Is it to do with what are the specific complaints that people have had about when not opening the library?
So the Queens Public Library closed the branch in Citibank, and I think there's been several developers that have offered preferential leases to the Queens Public Library for a new space, but the
Mhm.
Queens Public Library just hasn't committed to signing a space yet. So
Mhm.
although they've said they will, but
Mhm.
it's they nothing's set in stone.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's a matter of what we're gonna have to do with the school, which is like work with Queen's Library to find a space that they will find suitable as well. It's gonna take work because it's New York City, you know. We've built a lot, and on the other hand, hopefully, the best we can do is go and look at spaces with these people.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you. So the second question is, District 26 is made up of many diverse neighborhoods that are typically pretty segregated. Today families in one neighborhood can live, eat, work, send their kids to different schools than other families. Since these communities don't intersect, oftentimes you end up with perspectives with one neighborhood describing Long Island City as filled with kind of ghost towers. And then the other perspective describes Long Island City as overcrowded with the lack of school seats, public space, sewages, right? So, as the elected official representing the overall district, how do you reconcile these perspectives in different communities to kind of ensure better connectivity, but just overall representation for the district?
Well, I do agree that New York City in itself is a highly regionalized city. This has been an issue for a while, and one of the things we can do is better integrate our public schools, and making sure that we fully fund our public schools, that we have 3K and after school in every school district, and that we make sure that um, we essentially let our kids get to know each other through that is going to be vital in integrating our neighborhoods rather than just kind of diversifying our schools. And I think also the different perspectives aren't necessarily, I would say the image of the ghost towers, as opposed to the neighborhoods that are so crowded that there aren't school space. I think crowded doesn't necessarily mean with people, but crowded could mean with buildings that aren't being used. And when those buildings are crowding up the streets, there might be less space to do something like build a school. It might be trickier to be able to find space to build a library. Um, so I understand the concerns that people have in terms of overcrowding alongside the lack of actual space that they would need to be able to live, to be able to send their kids to a school in their neighborhood, to have a library space open. And it is a very difficult neighborhood to be able to be council member. I admire uh, anyone who's undertaken this thus far because of that. And one of the things you can do is listen, you know? You have to understand these different perspectives and you have to understand that it's not necessarily something that is opposed. You have to be able to explain your own perspective to your constituents, though, and to to understand where your constituents are coming from if your views are opposed. Um,
That's perfect. No, thank you. So just two more questions and then we're done. So, when Court Square was first envisioned, it was supposed to be a commercial area, kind of an extension of Midtown East.
Mhm.
However, a lot of the developments end up being kind of large residential high rises, as we know now. Today, Court Square is being positioned as more of a mixed use neighborhood with some significant commercial developments like the Jacks. It's a new 1 million square foot office space, and then there's a new bio life science building, and then the Citibank Tower is still in place.
yeah.
But what are your perspectives on potentially diversifying the business mixes, like commercial businesses within Court Square specifically, and then if applicable, with what government tools, incentives, policies, or otherwise?
Yes. So one of the things that we can do to diversify Court Square is making sure we have different kinds of businesses come in, right? So it can't just be luxury office towers. We would love small businesses to come in. And one of the things we can do to make that happen is the Business Job Survival Act, which would essentially allow small business people who want to start a new business the ability to negotiate a 10-year lease with a fair rent. And that way it's less of a risk for them to actually start a new business where they would like to start a new business. So if we were to do that, we could have all sorts of really great small businesses in Court Square the way that we have them in Sunnyside. And even in Sunnyside, we could really use lower commercial rent so that people can come in, do their thing, and make our neighborhoods a lot more vibrant and wonderful and interesting. And that's one of the things we could do to diversify Court Square in terms of the businesses that we got there.
Right. And then I guess so. The very last question is: I know this question was asked in March, and at the time, I think the group candidates were still learning about each other. But the question is, who would be your number two ranked choice vote in this election for the council member district? If you don't have a choice yet, that's okay. The extra bonus question is, who would be your ranked choice vote for the next mayor of New York City? I think that would be helpful for people to know.
So we're all talking with each other, but I think in a crowded field like this, if I'm being honest, we're less focused on choosing a number two as we are on just basically being cordial with each other enough to the point where we can envision working with each other. So I think that's where a lot of us are. So I like a lot of the people who've been running here too. And as for ranked choice for mayor, I would have three people who I really, really liked so far. And they are in no order: Diane Morales, Maya Wiley, and Art Chang.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Haley.
All right. Thank you so much, Frank.